Welcome to Handmade with Holly. My name is Holly Michelson and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Del Mar, New York. Today I'm really excited to bring you a great fall themed card, and I thought it'd be fun to start off my video outside in front of our Japanese maple tree that is in full color. It's gorgeous right now. We're going to be making this beautiful fall themed card featuring the Aspen Tree Die set, and I'm going to show you some watercoloring techniques and also using your blending brushes to make the background. Before we get started, just a quick reminder that if you are not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, I invite you to please subscribe. You can click on the red word subscribe, and don't forget to click on the notifications bell so that YouTube will notify you each time I upload a new video. Subscribing to my channel is free of charge. There's nothing to lose, so go ahead and click on that red word subscribe. And if the word's grayed out, you're already subscribed, so don't click it again or you'll accidentally unsubscribe yourself. All right, let's go ahead now and get started. Again, this is our great project for today. It features the Aspen Tree Dies. We'll be doing some watercoloring on shimmer paper. We'll also be using the blending brushes here in the background. I'm featuring the Aspen Tree Dies today. This is the set that you get. This leaf is amazing because it not only cuts out your leaf, but it also embosses the veins in the leaf at the same time. Same with this smaller leaf, it does that as well. And we'll be using this oval here to cut out the trees for the background. This die set was free during the latter part of Celebration when some of the other items sold out. Stampin' Up! Offered this free with a $100 purchase. Celebration is now over, but this item is actually in the July through December mini catalog, and so it's still available for purchase. It's actually intended as a bundle to pair with this stamp set called Perched in a Tree, which has this great bird, and you can see here that this is the die to cut out the bird. I'm not using Perched in a Tree today. I'm actually using Soft Seedlings, which is a beautiful fall set that allows you to stamp leaves with a variety of tones of the same color. You get the little helicopters here, but I just love the font and I couldn't resist using the font on this card today. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. In the interest of saving your time, I know there's lots of great content on YouTube that you can watch. I have cut out a lot of the pieces and parts, but I'm going to talk about what I did and how I did it. And there will also be a tutorial that you can download at the end so that you can get the dimensions and other things that you need in order to make this card. Here I have a piece of old olive cardstock. This is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, standard A2 card base. I have 2 sheets of basic white. They both measure 4 by 5 1/4, so they're 1/4 inch smaller. One is for the front, the other one is going to be for the inside so that you can stamp inside your card. And then we have another piece that's slightly smaller. This piece is 3 3/4 by 5, and this is going to slip behind the tree die, and it's what we're going to use to color our background. You'll also need some copper foil paper, a piece large enough that you can cut out the large leaf. And you'll need a small strip of shimmer paper, which we're going to use to watercolor our leaves. And then I just have a small strip here that I used to die cut the sentiment. And my sentiment label came from the Stylish Shapes die set, and I used this die right here to die cut my sentiment label. All right, let's get started. Make your standard A2 card base, and you're going to score it down the middle and use your bone folder to crease it. Going to watercolor our shimmer paper. Now, I don't know if you can see this on camera, but this is shimmer paper. The shimmer paper comes in 8.5 by 11 sheets. You get 10 sheets in a package, and it's basically basic white cardstock that has a shimmer to it. And the heft and texture of this paper. It makes it a great choice if you want to watercolor on your paper. We're gonna start off by making our leaves because the leaves are gonna need a little bit of time to dry. We're gonna aqua paint them. And so it's a great idea to start with this piece first so that they can dry while you're working on your background scene. So we're gonna start off with a strip of shimmer paper. My piece is actually a little too small for what we need. But it's a scrap that I happen to have handy, and I already have made the leaves that we're going to use today. So I'm just going to show you what I did prior to the video so that you can see the technique, so that this piece of paper is not large enough to cut out these leaves. Okay, so I'm going to start with my crushed curry and give a press to the lid so that some of the ink gets into the bottom of my ink pad. And then I'm going to come in with one of the Stampin' Up! Water painters. This one has a really wide brush, which means that I can cover a lot of territory quickly. So I like that. And I'm just going to give my water painter a little squeeze and bring a little bit of the water down into the brush, and then touch it to the ink in the lid. I'm starting with crushed curry, and I'm going to layer on top of it some old olive, and it's going to create this yellowish green color, giving the leaves some tone and intonation that they, so that they're not a flat color. And you can see how quickly I can go over this paper with this large water brush. It really covers a lot of territory very fast. And I'm just continuing to touch my lid and pick up more color as needed. And I'm brushing that onto my scrap of paper. Darker here, lighter there. And this is sort of the beauty of aqua painting, is that you can get variation in tone and color. So fun. I love to aqua paint. Okay, great. I'm going to close up my crushed curry. Now, if you have a lot of water there, you may want to take a baby wipe and clean that out before you close it so you don't get water on your pad. Mine was relatively dry by the time I was finished. So I'm going to take my old olive Stampin' Pad, and I'm going to give it a squeeze in the center, and I'm going to push on the ink pad so that it gets ink onto the lid. I didn't get that much, but we're going to give that a try, see what we can do with that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and paint some of this green onto my yellow color. I can also take the brush directly to my pad and bring the ink onto my paper. I can just brush it onto my pad and transfer the ink as a watercolor onto my paper. We don't have a need to paint any particular design or pattern. We're just trying to get a piece of paper that has variations of yellow and green mixed together like fall foliage that we can cut our leaves from. So no need to be neat. I can just aggressively go ahead and swish my brush around and fill it in and make it as dark or as light as I like. You can see it's a little darker here, darker there, lighter in other spots. That's kind of nice. You don't want everything to be exactly the same tone of green because we want the leaves to look like they're variegated a little bit. You may want to come in with a wipe and just sort of clean up the inside of your case before you close it so that it doesn't get onto your pad. Do that for the other one as well if I wanted to. Okay, I'm going to set this aside and let it dry, but through the magic of television, we can assume that these are dry. And then the next thing I'm going to do would be to take the leaf die and run it through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine 3 times and cut out 3 leaves here. And then the last piece is that I'm going to take Granny Apple Green. I have a Stampin' Blend, Granny Apple Green, and I'm just going to trace over the embossed lines on my leaf, color and texture to the veining on that leaf. I used the light Granny Apple Green. Now you could leave it like that where you have some definite depth, or if you want, you could run the aqua painter over the leaf again, and then it would blend the veining in even a little bit more. Which is what I did on these. But I went over it here, so it's a little darker. But you can see here what I did was I used the light Granny Apple Green. And if I had any spots that were darker than I wanted, I used the aqua painter. Now, if you have these water painters, they come in a set of 3, and some of the tips are smaller. So when you're going over the veining, you probably want to use the smaller water painter brush versus this really big one that we used when we were trying to cover a lot of territory quickly. All right, I'm going to go ahead and set those aside again. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to focus on our background. And this one now does have to dry because I just put water on my dry one. So we're going to set that aside and let that dry. Again, you could also at this point cut out the leaf with the copper foil paper. I'm going to move on to this step where I take the smaller of my 2 pieces of paper. This is the one that's 3 3/4 by 5. And I'm going to start doing the color blending with my blending brushes. So I'm going to use 3 blending brushes. I have 1 for yellows, 1 for blue, and 1 for green. And I'm going to use these. I'm going to start off with the crushed curry. Use the crushed curry up at the top and blend it into the Mango Melody. So I'm going to pick up a little ink there and just kind of rub it off to get any like hot spots, and then move it onto my paper and swirl it around across. You can pick up a little bit more ink, dab it off, and then come back in again. And do that until you're happy with the color. See, I did get a little bit of a spot there. Just blend that in till you like the color for your sunset. Okay. And then I'm going to come in with Mango Melody. So here's Mango Melody. And I'm going to use this. I'm going to use the same blending brushes. They're in the same color family, so no harm, no foul. Putting the same brush into this color ink. And you can see that the Mango Melody is just a little bit brighter, has a little bit of orange to it. So that kind of really enhances that look of the sunset. And I'm just swirling that in and getting some color till I'm happy with that. Concentrating some here around the center. I can even swish a little bit, just draw a little bit up if I like. And letting it kind of fade down below. Okay, now let's go ahead and switch to the Balmy Blue. Here's my Balmy Blue, and I'm gonna pick up my blue blending brush this time. And I'm actually going to overlap this a little bit with a Mango Melody, which is going to give me tones of blue and tones of green. So I'm going to get some really pretty color here. See how that mango and the Balmy Blue together give me some green. So I'm just going to keep working that till I'm really happy with the color. I'm going to come down a little bit lower there. Work it. And lastly, we're going to finish off the horizon with Old Olive. We're going to come in one more time here with the old olive. And remember that some of this is going to be covered by the tree, the sheet that has the trees on it. So we won't see all elements of this, but it'll give us some nice color in the background. So that kind of gives us like a grassy ground, if you will. All right, I think that looks fantastic. Now, lastly, we want to bring some color onto these trees. We want to kind of grunge them up a little bit so that they maybe look a little bit like birch trees, how there's kind of that little bit of brown. So I have crumb cake here, and I'm going to take my crumb cake sponge dauber, and I'm just going to daub a little bit on here. I'm just kind of tapping it. I'm not dragging it. I'm sort of tapping it here and there so that I have places where it's white and I have places where it's got a little grunge, and it's giving it a little bit of depth and dimension that will also be a nice contrast with the background. Now we're going to go ahead and stamp our sentiments. So I have a sentiment for the front, so grateful, and then on the inside it's going to say for you, and these both come from the Soft Seedlings stamp set, and I'm going to do them in Old Olive. So here we go, so grateful, and then on the inside I'm going to say for you. And if you have perched in a tree, there's some nice grunge and whatnot in here. I'm gonna go ahead and grab that. Let's do that. Mix it up a little bit from what I did last time. And let's go ahead and take maybe some crumb cake. And let's just go ahead and put a little grunge in there, kind of give it a little color on the inside. It's kind of fun, right? So now that we have all our pieces and parts, we can go ahead and just quickly assemble. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put some adhesive on this and put this on the inside. There we go. And now we have our background scene. I'm gonna go ahead, adhesive on that. Try to center that on the front of the card. There we go. And now we're gonna take our trees. I'm just gonna get adhesive in the corners. I'm gonna try to make sure I've got some good adhesive in those big spaces. And then I'm just gonna carefully work a little bit in a few spots on the trees so that they're not lifting up. Just work a little bit in a few places, tap it in there. And then we're gonna go ahead and carefully place this down, making sure that there are no bare openings. Like you don't wanna put it down like this and have the card base peeking through. We're gonna mount this down in a way that there's no card base showing. Perfect. Go ahead and mount that down. And now I can go ahead and take my copper leaf and sort of arrange these how I like them, get an idea of how I like these arranged. This kind of looks like a leaf is falling. I like that up there. So let's go ahead and do that. You want to make sure that your watercolor leaves are mostly dry. We don't want them too wet. It's more difficult to get the adhesive on the back when they're wet. So you want to make sure those are mostly dry at this point. and go ahead and arrange those however you like. My third leaf here for the top as though it's falling, like that. And now I'm going to take some Stampin' Dimensionals and put those on the back of my sentiment and pop this up. Just peel those papers off, and we're going to go ahead and pop this up and kind of just look for what you think is good placement for that. And there we go. There you have it. Hopefully you think that's a beautiful fall card. I think it's perfect for the season. Now the shimmer paper that we watercolored together is just about dry at this point. It's just ever so slightly damp. So you can see it doesn't take that long for it to dry. I did use a lot of water on it with this very thick brush. And so it really doesn't take that long to dry. So it was super smart to do that first and then work on the background, which gave it time to dry. But this was a really easy card. It has a lot of impact and wow. Whoever receives it is going to be completely impressed. And you'll have had a great time doing it. Now, before we finish, I always want to clean up, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my water brush, and I'm just going to squeeze some water and run that on my napkin or baby wipe or your Stampin' Chamois, whatever you're using, and just use the water to clean the ink off my brush so that it's ready to use the next time. And I didn't actually do that in between colors. If I had painted with the green first and then moved to the yellow, I would have surely needed to clean my brush in between. But because I was using the lighter color, the yellow first, and then moving to the green, and we were coloring the same page to blend them together, I didn't clean the brush in between. But when you are using colors that you don't want to mix, always be sure to squeeze some water through your water painter and make sure that you're cleaning the brush a little bit before you move on to your next color. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I had a great time. And as a reminder, if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please click on that red subscribe button and click on the notifications bell so that you're notified each time I upload a new video. Again, if you look down in the description, there will be a link to the tutorial, which will provide you with the directions, the color list, and supply list. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Until the next time. Bye.